Words of Joy and Hope. 11th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year A. Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 9, verses 36 to chapter 10, verse 8. Commentary of Father Fernando Armelini. A good Sunday to all. There is a generalized desire that everyone feels, and it is the expectation that in our world something new will emerge because we are tired of hearing about wars, violence, injustice, and we are tired of hearing the language of insults, threats, and retaliation. And we hope that everything chaotic in our world will give way to an orderly world where peace, justice, and respect for the dignity of each person reign. This is a change that everyone seeks to achieve in politics, in economics, in science, in technology. Even those who build weapons are looking for it. And they think it is how you create this new reality we all hope for. How many Christians believe that the only force that can bring about this new reality is the proclamation of the gospel? As long as the world does not accept the logic of the gospel, all attempts to build a new reality will fail. At the beginning of his gospel, the evangelist Matthew places the Sermon on the Mount. There are 3 chapters, and then he dedicates 2 chapters to narrate the humanity that Jesus encounters when he comes down from the mountain. It is sick humanity. It is sick from physical point of view because he meets lepers, paralytics, the blind, the sick, and the sick from the spiritual point of view because it's a sinner. Many demons possess it. It is our humanity that Jesus encounters when he comes down from the mountain, and in these 2 chapters, Matthew narrates what happens to this humanity when Jesus arrives, when his word, his gospel arrives. Healings and wonders happen, and he narrates 10 of them, one after another. What does this evangelist want to tell us? He wants to say to us that where Jesus comes with his healing word, everything changes. His word makes all that is inhuman disappear from the world. The first person he meets is a leper, and we know that a leper was considered the very incarnation of sin because sin makes us as ugly as a leper. We think that the violent, the dishonest, the self-indulgent, and the corrupt are ugly people, and we all try to stay away from them. And sin makes us like lepers. It disfigures our faces. It makes the human face unrecognizable in us. What does the gospel do when it enters our lives? It heals us from this condition. It gives us a new, beautiful face like that of the Son of God. Then coming down from the mountain, he meets a paralytic. It is the image of someone who cannot walk in life, of one who is stuck, who must be accompanied, and who must go where he is led. Jesus stands up, one who is paralyzed in his own life and does not build a life worth living. It is the gospel that heals. Then he meets a blind man who represents those who do not know which path to choose in life, often moves in the wrong direction because he does not see. The word of Jesus, his gospel, opens the eyes of the blind man, indicates the right choices to make. It is the humanity that is represented by all these diseases. It is the humanity that Jesus encounters, our humanity. Then the evangelist Matthew places among these wonders another healing, the most difficult to heal, which is the healing of the attachment to money. It's a miracle like
È
the
un
miracle of
miracolo come quello di far
passing a
passare un
camel
cammello
through the
dalla
eye
crina
of a
d'un
needle.
ago. Ed è
And
proprio
it
il
is
caso del
precisely
nostro
the case of
evangelista
our
Matteo,
evangelist
l'esattore
Matthew,
dei tributi e
the
dei
tax
dazi
collector
a
in Capernaum.
Cafarno.
It
È
is
lui che
he who,
50 anni
50 years
dopo,
after the
la
call he
chiamata che
received
lui ha
from
ricevuto
Jesus,
da Gesù,
writes this
scrive questo
account of the
racconto
miracle
del
that
prodigio
the
che la
word of
parola di
Jesus
Gesù ha
worked
operato
in
nella
his
sua
life.
vita. Si chiamava
His
Levi e
name
lui
was Levi,
dice: sono
and he said,
Matteo.
I am
Matanà in
Matthew.
ebraico significa dono
Matanna
di Dio.
in Hebrew
Ecco, colui che
means
era malato,
gift of
e questa è
God.
una malattia che noi
He
ritroviamo
is the
nel
one
nostro
who was
mondo,
sick,
che causa
and this is a
tutti i
sickness that we
mali,
find in our world that
l'attaccamento, il
causes all
volere
evils,
accumulare sempre
attachment,
più beni.
the desire to
Ecco,
accumulate more and
anche
more
questa guarigione
possessions.
viene operata dal
Also,
Vangelo.
this
E a
healing
questo
is
punto
operated by the
Gesù
gospel.
dice ai discepoli che
And at this
lui
point,
non può
Jesus tells the
cambiare
disciples that
il mondo
he
da
cannot
solo,
change the
ha
world
bisogno di
alone. He
collaboratori.
needs co-workers.
Sentiamo qual è il contesto
Let us
in
listen
cui
to the
questi
context in which
collaboratori
these
sono chiamati a
collaborators are called
svolgere la
to
loro
carry out their
missione.
mission. At the sight of the crowds, his heart was moved with pity for them because they were troubled and abandoned like sheep without a shepherd. We have heard how the evangelist describes the humanity that Jesus has before him. They are people exhausted and in disarray, like a flock without shepherd, a humanity that no one cares about. Neither the political leaders nor the religious authority, because they are all motivated by the pursuit of their self-interest. They only think of improving their own lives, and they neglect the hungry, the sick, the oppressed, the mistreated, and the abused. The image used by the evangelist, it is taken from the Old Testament. In chapter 27 of the book of Numbers, it is said that Moses one day turned to God and asked him, "Do not allow these people of yours to be one day in disarray like a flock without a shepherd." Unfortunately, the history of the kings of Israel tells us that they all turned out not to be shepherds, but unworthy leaders who led the people to ruin. The prophet Ezekiel, in chapter 34 of his book, makes a harsh rebuke of this intolerable situation and concludes that in the end, there is no hope that anything will change with these corrupt people, capable only of exploiting the sheep and terrorizing a ruined country. And at the end, he makes a promise. One day, the Lord will personally take care of his people. He will become the shepherd who leads Israel. And in Jesus, God fulfilled this promise. He has personally come to care for the sick humanity. And what emotion did you feel? We perhaps imagine God far away, who loves humanity, but whether humanity is good or bad, he is pleased anyway. In Jesus, God revealed himself as someone who is emotionally involved, who is moved, who can feel compassion for the pain of humanity. Compassion precisely in the sense of sympathizing, of suffering with, of feeling as one's own the pain of suffering people. This is our God. The word used is splanginisomai, which occurs 12 times in the Gospels. And it is always applied only to God and Jesus, as if he alone could feel this strong emotion. Splanchnizomai comes from splangna, which is the viscera, It is the visceral passion. The same image is employed in the Old Testament when God self-presents himself and says, Amit Rahum. Rahum comes from Rehem, which is the womb. It is uterine love. The strongest passion a person can feel is that of the mother for the child in her womb. It is the image that God uses to express his involvement in man's needs. Let us ask ourselves if we experience this feeling in the face of the needs of humankind. If you do not feel it, forget about becoming a disciple of Jesus, because you will not allow yourselves to be involved in his work of saving humanity. Let us ask ourselves then, how do you feel today about the needs of humanity? Don't we also see so many people exhausted of running after vanities only to experience always bitter disappointments? Do we not see people tired of cultivating ephemeral hopes and facing meaningless lives? What do we feel in front of this humanity? Are we interested? Or is it enough to think about our little world, our little garden? Do we care that so many young people today do not know what values are worth risking their lives for? A youth that is in abandonment, immersed in an immense sadness that then tries to cover it with a false joy. A youth that confuses joy with pleasure, partying with drunkenness. Maybe I am exaggerating a little, but don't we perhaps often see a youth cajoled by touts, influencers who pass off vanities and insults as a new vision of the world and life? What do we feel before this reality of the world? Do we feel the passion that is revealed in Jesus? And also about the ecclesial reality of today. Do we see it or don't we see it? What do we feel in front of so many abandonments? The spread of secularism, the scandals, the collapse of religious practice in the West. Do we feel the emotion of Jesus' love? Do we feel the ecclesial problems as our own? Or do we think they only concern the hierarchy? Let us now listen to what Jesus says to those whom he wants to involve as collaborators in his work of salvation. The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. Let us clarify who the co-workers are that Jesus wants to imply, because there is a whole tradition that leads to identifying them with priests, religious men and women. The church certainly needs these people who consecrate their whole life to the church, to the service of the gospel and of the brothers and sisters, and even renounce having their own families, precisely to be available to all. But restricting the task of reaping to this category of Christians is wrong. This would lead to considering God's people as a flock of stray sheep or a harvest that is being lost for lack of workers, that is, priests. Not so. Jesus addresses each disciple whom he invites to contemplate the harvest to be reaped. They are the ones who experience his passion of love for humanity. What does Jesus want to tell us with this image? That the harvest is ripe. That is, humanity is ready to accept the gospel. We think that things are not like that, and we are discouraged, and we repeat, It is not worth proclaiming the gospel because people are not interested in God. They only think about money, to have a good time, to have fun. Maybe it is true, but it is to this humanity, with all its contradictions and miseries, that we must address, because Jesus tells us it is ready and ripe for the gospel. This is humanity as it is. The problem is that laborers are lacking, and Jesus is correct. Let us try to ask ourselves, how many are there who feel his same passion of love for humanity? They are few. So, what is to be done? Jesus suggests, ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. This prayer poses difficulties for us because we ask ourselves why we should ask the owner to send laborers. He should be the first to be interested in the problem. Why should we ask for it? This question is asked by those who have not understood what it means to pray. It doesn't mean repeating formulas. It doesn't mean trying to convince God to do his part. God already does his part. He already does it very well. Prayer is not trying to convince God to do what we ask him to do. Prayer puts us in tune with his thoughts. Real prayer makes us internalize his passion of love for humanity. It is in listening to his word and in the dialogue with him that we come to understand how just and beautiful is his plan of love. And the Spirit gives us the strength to do the work that Jesus wants us to do. The workers are very few. We know it because we pray little. We do not pray. It is not that we do not repeat formulas. We do it, and even too many. But because we do not allow ourselves to be interiorized in the thought and love of Christ. Let us now listen to what tasks Jesus entrusted to us. Then he summoned his 12 disciples and gave them authority over unclean spirits to drive them out and to cure every disease and every illness. There are two tasks that Jesus asks us to carry out: to cast out unclean spirits and to heal all kinds of sicknesses and diseases. Let us observe that this is exactly what he did throughout his life: cast out demons and heal the sick. This means that we are called to give continuity to his work of salvation and to carry out this mission. He gives us the power to perform wonders, to expel the unclean spirits. Unclean in Bible means everything contrary to life. What prevents us from living happily as brothers in this world? They are the demons. Let us identify them. Let us call them by their name. They are called envy, jealousy, hatred, grudges, desires to always possess more goods, to dominate, to enslave others. These are the demons that create a ruthless world where the other is seen as a rival, an enemy, not as a brother or sister to love. These demons must be cast out. And where will they be found? In the heart of each person. We are all possessed. And also to cure every disease and every illness. It does not consist in the power to perform miracles as we imagine. No, diseases must be overcome. And that is why the true disciple puts all his abilities so that people be physically healthy, not suffering. Pain must be overcome. But it is not only physical diseases that afflict humanity. Society is sick and needs to be cured where there is no freedom, where there is no justice, where the dignity of women is not respected. Society is sick where violence is committed, where there is moral corruption. Over these evils, Jesus gives us the power and the authority to overcome them. Let us ask ourselves if we are aware of the power that Jesus has left us and what this power is. It is the power of the word, of the gospel, which has in itself the divine force of the Spirit, and evil cannot resist this power. And now we are presented with the list of the first workers who have given their adhesion to the Master. Let us listen to their names. The names of the 12 apostles are these. First, Simon called Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew, the tax collector, James, the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. What can we observe in this list of names that perhaps we skim quickly without giving them too much importance? We observe in the first place that there are 12. This is a reference to the 12 tribes of Israel, and it means that the Christian community is not called to replace Israel, but it is a daughter of Israel. It is the ripe fruit of this tree that God came to cultivate throughout the centuries. Let us note that the names are listed 2 by 2. Peter and Andrew, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew. It means that the mission is not the work of individuals but of a community. And to be a community, it must be at least 2 persons. Even if an individual proclaims the gospel personally, he must always feel part of a community, sent by a community. We also observe that in the composition of this group are the most standard and ordinary people. There are no outstanding people from a cultural point of view. There are no scribes, rabbis, and even from the moral point of view, they have their defects and their limitations. One is a tax collector. Another will not allow himself to be converted, and in the end will deliver the master. In short, they too are sinners. One day, Peter will recognize this and say, Jesus, depart from me, for I am a sinner. In other words, they are not different from us. They are ordinary people, very typical like us. Now let us listen to the area where they will have to carry out their mission and how they will do it. Let us listen. Jesus sent out these 12 after instructing them thus: do not go into pagan territory or enter a Samaritan town. Go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. As you go, make this proclamation: the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Cure the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, drive out demons. Without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. We have heard Jesus define the scope in which this first group of his co-workers, the 12, are called to carry out their mission. They are sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And this may surprise us because we would expect him to send them to all people. No, this will happen after Easter, when the risen one on the mountain will say to his apostles, go and make disciples among all peoples. I will be with you always, even to the end of the world. Therefore, it is not a question of exclusion of the pagans, but the pedagogy of God who wanted the blessings promised to Abraham salvation to reach the whole world, to all people through Israel. And Israel, therefore, is the first to receive the gospel. Then Jesus, having again reminded the disciples of the task they were to do, healed the sick, cleansed the lepers, cast out demons. He makes a critical recommendation: carry out your mission in complete detachment from personal interests and advantages, because otherwise the message would immediately lose credibility. Without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. I wish you all a good Sunday and a good week.